Season 5 is full of wild ending theories, from Max potentially dying for real this time, to Will making the ultimate sacrifice that changes everything. I'll be going over every major Season 5 ending theory that could happen, starting with one of the most heartbreaking. Multiple fan theories predict major character deaths in Season 5, but they're all connected to one bigger pattern that most people are completely missing when they talk about these theories online. Everyone's talking about Steve sacrificing himself to save Dustin, right? The theory goes that Steve throws himself in front of some upside-down monster to protect his favorite kid, probably saying something about how he was never really good at anything except babysitting anyway. It's heartbreaking because it would complete Steve's character arc from Season 1 bully to the group's protector. Then there's Jonathan potentially dying in some heroic stand. This one makes sense because Jonathan has been kind of sidelined in recent seasons, so giving him a big heroic moment before killing him off would be classic Stranger Things. He'd probably die protecting Will or Joyce, finally stepping into that big brother role he's always struggled with. And here's the really messed up part. There are theories that Max dies despite everyone's efforts to save her. Like, imagine if they managed to wake her up from the coma only for her to die later in the season anyway. That would be absolutely brutal, especially after everything Lucas and the group went through trying to save her. But here's what nobody's connecting. These aren't random death predictions. Look at the pattern. Every single one of these deaths serves the same narrative purpose. They're all about characters who started as outsiders or supporting players becoming the heroes of their own stories through sacrifice. Steve was the popular kid who became the babysitter. Jonathan was the weird loner who became the protector. Max was the angry new girl who became part of the family. See what's happening here? The show has been building these characters up specifically so their deaths would have maximum emotional impact, and there's evidence for this pattern in how the Duffer Brothers have handled deaths before. Think about Bob Newby in Season 2. They spent the entire season making us love this dorky guy, showing him being sweet with Joyce and helping the kids, and then they killed him off in the most heroic way possible. Same thing with Eddie in Season 4. They made him this lovable metalhead outcast, then had him sacrifice himself to save everyone. This death pattern isn't just about emotional impact though, it's actually setting up something way bigger that connects to all the other theories. Because if these character deaths happen the way fans predict, it removes certain key players from the board right when the supernatural stuff gets really crazy. Think about it. If Steve dies protecting the kids, who's going to be the muscle when they need to fight monsters? If Jonathan dies protecting his family, who's going to be Will's anchor to the real world when things get supernatural? If Max dies, despite being saved, what does that say about whether anyone can really escape Vecna's influence? These deaths aren't just endings for these characters, they're removing the normal human elements right when the story needs to go full supernatural horror. It's like the Duffer Brothers are clearing the deck of anyone who can't contribute to the psychic battle that's coming. But here's where it gets weird. These character deaths might actually be necessary for the most insane theory about who survives and how their relationships change everything in the final battle. The Byler romance theory isn't just about shipping or giving fans what they want. It's actually connected to Will's supernatural connection in a way that could completely affect how the entire series ends. And most people talking about this theory are missing the supernatural angle. Here's what the theory says. Will's been hiding his feelings for Mike since basically forever, right? All those lingering looks, the way he gets jealous when Mike talks about Eleven, that whole speech in the van about how Mike makes him feel like he's not a mistake. It's all been building to Will finally admitting his feelings. The theory is that this confession happens during some vulnerable moment in Season 5. Maybe they're hiding from monsters, maybe Mike is injured, maybe they think they're about to die, and Will finally tells Mike how he really feels, probably expecting Mike to reject him or be weirded out. But here's the part that most Byler shippers aren't connecting to the supernatural plot. Will's emotional state has always been tied to his connection to the Upside Down. When he was scared or upset in Season 2, he could sense the Mind Flayer more clearly. When he was happy and felt safe, the connection got weaker. So what happens if Will has this huge emotional breakthrough with Mike? What if Mike doesn't reject him? What if Mike actually reciprocates? Suddenly Will's emotional state completely changes. He goes from feeling isolated and different and wrong to feeling accepted and loved and understood. That emotional shift could be exactly what he needs to control his connection to the Upside Down instead of being controlled by it. Instead of the connection being this painful reminder of his trauma, it becomes a tool he can use because he finally feels strong enough to handle it. And there's evidence for this in the show already. Remember in Season 2 how Will could sense the Mind Flayer, but he could also hide from it when he felt safe? Remember how in Season 4 the Mind Flayer used Will's memories and emotions to understand the human world? The connection connection goes both ways. If Will finally feels emotionally secure because of Mike, he might be able to flip that connection and use it against Vecna. Instead of Vecna reading Will's mind, Will could potentially read Vecna's mind. Instead of Vecna using Will's emotions against him, Will could use his newfound emotional strength against Vecna. But it's not just about Will becoming more powerful. This emotional revelation would happen right when Will's psychic abilities are most needed for the group's survival. And here's the really crazy part. It sets up why Vecna would be so desperate to possess Will specifically. Because if Will becomes emotionally stronger and gains control over his connection, he becomes a huge threat to Vecna's plans. So Vecna's move would be to possess Will before this emotional breakthrough can happen, or right after it happens to corrupt it. This is why the relationship theory isn't separate from the supernatural plot. It's actually the key to understanding why Will is so important in Season 5, and why his emotional journey matters for the actual battle against evil. Because Will's emotional state might be the key to understanding why Vecna wants to possess him specifically, and why that possession could be either the hero's biggest advantage or their complete downfall. Vecna possessing. Will, Kaylee returning to help Eleven, and Eleven potentially becoming the new ruler of the Upside Down might sound like three separate theories, but they're all pieces of the same puzzle about power transfer and control that most fans aren't putting together correctly. Let's start with the Vecna possession theory because it's the most terrifying one. The idea is that Vecna, getting desperate as the heroes close in on him, decides to possess Will's body to get direct access to the real world. And this isn't just random. Will has been connected to the Upside Down since Season 1 when he was trapped there. But here's the really messed up part. Vecna wouldn't just be possessing Will for his body, he'd be possessing Will specifically to mess with Eleven. Because Eleven cares about Will, and if Vecna is inside Will, then Eleven can't just blast him with her powers without potentially killing one of her friends. Picture this scene. Eleven is facing off against Vecna for the final battle, she's powered up and ready to end this, and then Vecna reveals he's inside Will's body. Suddenly Eleven has to choose between saving the world and saving her friend. That's psychological torture, and it's exactly the kind of twisted move Vecna would pull. The possession would be horrifying to watch too. Will's face, but with Vecna's voice. Will's mannerisms, but with Vecna's cruelty. And the worst part would be moments where Will breaks through, where we see the real Will trying to fight back from inside his own mind, begging his friends not to let Vecna win. But this is where the Kali theory becomes crucial. Remember Kaylee from Season 2, Eleven's sister from the lab who could create illusions? Most people think she was just a one-off character, but there's a theory she comes back in Season 5 to help with this exact situation. Kaylee's illusion powers would be perfect for a psychological battle against Vecna. While Eleven provides the raw psychic strength, Kaylee could create mental distractions and false realities inside Vecna's mind. If Vecna is possessing Will, Kaylee and Eleven could potentially team up to go inside Will's mind and fight Vecna on his own turf. This would give us amazing scenes of psychological warfare. Kaylee creating fake versions of Vecna's victims to confuse him, making him see his past failures and defeats. Eleven using her powers to protect Will's consciousness while Kaylee messes with Vecna's mental state. It would be like Inception, but with superpowers and way more emotional stakes. And here's where the evidence gets really strong. The show has been building up the idea that Eleven is more powerful when she has emotional support and connections to other people. In Season 4, she got her powers back by remembering her time with the other lab kids. Having Kaylee there would represent Eleven finally embracing her lab family instead of just trying to be normal. But even with Kaylee's help, defeating Vecna might require the ultimate sacrifice from Eleven. And that's where the theory about Eleven becoming the ruler of the Upside Down comes in. The idea is that to truly seal the Upside Down forever, Eleven would have to absorb Vecna's essence and become the new guardian of that dimension. She'd have to stay in the Upside Down permanently to make sure it never bleeds into the real world again. This would be the ultimate tragic victory. The heroes win, the world is saved, but Eleven has to isolate herself from everyone she loves to keep them safe. She becomes this eternal guardian, alone in a dark dimension, sacrificing her chance at a normal life to protect everyone else's. The evidence for this is in how the show has always presented Eleven's powers as both a gift and a burden. She's never been able to just be a normal kid. Her powers always come with a cost, and the ultimate cost would be her freedom. Plus, it would parallel Vecna's own story. He was once human too, but he chose to embrace the darkness and become a monster. Eleven would be making the opposite choice, embracing her responsibility and becoming a protector, even though it means giving up her humanity in a different way. But here's the thing that makes these theories work together. The possession, Kaylee's return, and Eleven's sacrifice all depend on the assumption that there's still a distinction between the real world and the Upside Down to protect. These supernatural power plays become completely irrelevant if the Thessal Hydra and dimensional merge theories happen, because in those scenarios, there's no safe world left to protect. theories that make everything else pointless. The Thessalhedra emergence and the full merger of the Upside Down with Hawkins would make all the character deaths, relationship revelations, and supernatural power struggles we just talked about completely meaningless, and that's exactly why these theories might be the most likely ones. First, let's talk about the Thessalhedra, because this theory has been hiding in plain sight since Season 2. The Thessalhedra comes from the Dungeons & Dragons game the kids play, and it's basically this massive multi-headed serpent that can regenerate its heads when they're cut off. In D&D, it's one of the most dangerous creatures you can face because conventional attacks don't work. You cut off one head, 2 more grow back. Now think about how this would work in the Stranger Things universe. The kids have been using D&D rules to understand upside down creatures since Season 1. The Demogorgon, the Mind Flayer, they all corresponded to D&D monsters. So if the Thessalhedra shows up, it would be following that same pattern, but here's what makes this theory terrifying. If the Thessalhedra emerges as this ultimate upside-down creature, it would make all the personal battles irrelevant. Suddenly, it's not about whether Eleven can defeat Vecna or whether Will can control his connection. It's about basic survival against a creature that literally cannot be killed by normal means. The evidence for this is in Will's Season 2 artwork, but also in how the show has been escalating the threats. Season 1 had 1 Demogorgon. Season 2 had a pack of Demodogs and the Mind Flayer. Season 3 had the Mind Flayer possessing people and creating the flesh monster. Season 4 had Vecna opening multiple gates. Each season, the threat gets bigger and more complex. So Season 5 having this ultimate creature that combines all the worst aspects of previous monsters makes perfect sense. The Thessalhedra could be like the final boss that requires everything the characters have learned to defeat. But even the Thessalhedra theory pales in comparison to the dimensional merge theory, and this one has the strongest evidence of all the theories we've discussed. The dimensional merge theory says that the barriers between the upside down and the real world collapse completely. Not just gates opening, not just temporary bleeding, but full merger. The 2 dimensions become one, creating this nightmare hybrid reality where upside down vines grow through Hawkins streets and time itself becomes unstable. The evidence for this has been building since Season 4. Those cracks in the earth weren't just random destruction, they were specifically showing reality breaking down. The 4 gates that Vecna opened weren't separate, they were parts of a larger fracture that's been spreading. If the dimensions fully merge, then Hawkins becomes this post-apocalyptic wasteland where the normal rules don't apply anymore. Imagine Hawkins High School but covered in vines and floating particles. Imagine the town square, but the sky's that red lightning storm from the upside down. Imagine trying to have normal conversations about relationships and feelings when reality itself is constantly shifting around you. This theory makes all the other theories pointless because survival becomes the only thing that matters. Note, Will's feelings for Mike? Irrelevant when they're running from monsters through a corrupted version of their hometown. Steve's character development? Doesn't matter when the entire world has become a horror movie. The dimensional merge would force a complete genre shift for the show's final season. Instead of supernatural drama with monster elements, it becomes full survival horror. The characters wouldn't be fighting to save Hawkins, they'd be fighting to escape it. And here's the really dark part of this theory. If the dimensions merge permanently, then the heroes don't really win. They might survive, they might escape, but Hawkins is lost forever. Everyone who couldn't evacuate is just gone. The town where all their memories were made becomes this cursed wasteland that no one can ever return to. This would be the ultimate subversion of expectations. Stranger Things has always been about protecting home and fighting for your community, but what if, in the end, home can't be saved? What if the final lesson is that sometimes you have to let go of the past to survive? The dimensional merge theory also explains why there would be an 18-month time jump at the beginning of Season 5. That time could be the government trying to contain the situation, evacuating civilians, setting up quarantine zones. By the time the main characters return to deal with it, Hawkins could already be this no man's land where only the bravest or most desperate people dare to go. And that brings us to why ranking these theories actually matters, because the likelihood of each theory reveals what the Duffer Brothers have really been building toward this entire time. The most likely theories aren't the ones that give us the happiest endings or the most satisfying character moments. They're the ones that combine multiple elements we just covered while staying true to how the Duffer Brothers have been escalating stakes throughout the entire series. Here's how these theories actually rank based on likelihood, and why understanding this ranking reveals the true direction of Season 5. At the bottom of the likelihood scale, we have the purely positive theories. Max waking up completely healed, everyone surviving, Eleven getting a happy ending. These rank low not because they're impossible, but because they don't match the pattern of increasing darkness the show has been following. Think about it. Season 1 was scary but hopeful. Barb died, but Will survived. Season 2 was darker. Bob died, saving everyone. Season 3 was even darker. Hopper apparently died, and Billy's death was tragic even though he was a villain. Season 4 was the darkest yet. Max technically died and had to be revived, Eddie died, and Vecna succeeded in opening the gates. So Season 5 continuing this pattern of escalating darkness makes the tragic theories more likely than the happy ones. The character death theories rank higher than the survival theories because they fit the pattern. In the middle range, we have the supernatural resolution theories, Vecna possessing Will, Kaylee returning, 11 becoming the guardian of the Upside Down. These rank as moderately likely because they provide dramatic payoffs while still allowing for some characters to survive and have closure. These theories work because they give major characters heroic moments while maintaining the supernatural elements that make the show unique. They're dark enough to feel realistic for where the show has been heading, but not so dark that they completely destroy hope. The Vecna possession theory ranks particularly high because it would create incredible drama between Eleven's power and her love for her friends. The Kaylee return theory ranks lower because while it would be cool, it's not absolutely necessary for the plot resolution. But at the top of the likelihood scale, we have the world-ending theories. The Thessalhedra emergence and the dimensional merge rank highest because they represent the ultimate escalation of everything the show has been building toward. The Duffer Brothers have said multiple times that Season 5 is going to be bigger and more epic than anything they've done before. They've also said it's going to be darker and more adult than previous seasons. Those statements point directly toward the apocalyptic theories being most likely. The dimensional merge theory ranks as the most probable because it's the logical endpoint of the gate opening plot that started in Season 1. Every season has been about the barriers between worlds getting weaker. Season 5 being where they collapse entirely makes perfect narrative sense. Plus, the world-ending theories solve a major writing problem the Duffer Brothers face. How do you end a show about kids fighting supernatural threats when the actors are now adults? By making the final season so intense and apocalyptic that the characters are forced to truly grow up and leave childhood behind forever. The ranking also reveals what the Duffer Brothers value most as storytellers. They're not primarily interested in giving fans exactly what they want in terms of character relationships or happy endings. They're interested in completing the thematic journey they started, which is about growing up and facing the fact that sometimes childhood can't be preserved. Understanding this ranking system shows why the most likely ending combines elements from multiple theories rather than focusing on just one. The most probable Season 5 ending involves some major character deaths, at least partial dimensional merger, and 11 making a huge sacrifice, but with enough survivors to give the story some hope. This isn't just speculation, it's based on recognizing the patterns in how the Duffer Brothers have been building tension and raising stakes across 5 seasons. They've been preparing us for an ending that's tragic but meaningful, dark but not hopeless. And that's why these theories matter so much for understanding what Season 5 will really be about. It won't just be about defeating the final monster or saving the world. It'll be about the characters accepting that saving what they can is sometimes the best victory you can hope for. The theories that rank highest are the ones that force the characters to make adult choices about sacrifice and loss. That's what growing up really means, and it's what Stranger Things has been building towards since Will first disappeared into the Upside Down. So when Season 5 finally drops, don't just watch for which theories come true. Watch for how the Duffer Brothers use these massive supernatural stakes to tell the most personal story possible about what it costs to protect the people you love. What's your top theory? Comment below and hit subscribe for more Season 5 breakdowns.